Most men will listen to this too late. Not because it isn't true, but because it threatens the story they've been telling themselves for years. If you're an older man and you believe your best years are behind you, stay with me. Because that belief is the very thing making you invisible. Here's what no one tells you. Attraction doesn't disappear with age. It changes form. And if you don't understand how it changes, you will spend the rest of your life trying to win a game you're no longer meant to play. You've been taught to measure yourself by youth, speed, and approval, to compete with younger men on energy rather than depth, to assume silence means irrelevance. And slowly, without realizing it, you stepped back, not because you lost value, but because you stopped seeing it. What if I told you that the qualities you now overlook are the very ones people respond to most? That the calm you think makes you boring actually makes others feel safe? That the restraint you mistake for weakness is read as strength? That the fact you no longer chase attention is exactly why attention lingers when you enter a room? Most men never hear this because no one benefits from telling them. A grounded man is hard to manipulate. A self-directed man is difficult to distract, and a man who understands his value no longer begs to be chosen. If you've ever felt underestimated, dismissed, or quietly sidelined, not because you lacked ability, but because you stopped performing, this conversation is for you. What you're about to hear isn't motivation, it's recalibration. By the end of this video, you won't just see yourself differently. You'll understand why others already do, and why walking away from this message now would keep you stuck in a version of yourself you've already outgrown. Most men believe attraction begins with what people can see. The face, the body, the age, the surface details that time inevitably changes. And for a long time, society reinforces this belief. Youth is celebrated, energy is mistaken for value, and visibility is confused with importance. So as men grow older, many quietly assume they are becoming less desirable, less relevant, less magnetic. Not because anyone explicitly told them so, but because they absorbed a story that was never designed to serve them. But attraction does not actually work that way. Not the kind that lasts. Not the kind that creates respect, curiosity, and desire at the same time. Real attraction begins long before someone looks at you. It begins with how you carry yourself into a room, how you sit in silence, how you respond when nothing is going your way. It begins with presence. Presence is not charisma. It is not charm. It is not confidence in the performative sense. Presence is the ability to be fully grounded in yourself without needing to be witnessed. When a man has presence, he does not rush to fill space with noise. He does not lean forward energetically trying to prove his relevance. He allows the room to adjust to him rather than adjusting himself to the room. And people feel this before they understand it. This is why some men speak very little and yet are listened to closely. Not because their words are louder or smarter, but because their silence already communicates stability. When you are present, you do not chase attention. Attention moves toward you naturally, almost involuntarily, and this is where older men often underestimate themselves. With time comes the opportunity to develop presence, but only if you stop trying to compete on terms that were never meant to last. A younger man often relies on energy. He moves quickly, reacts emotionally, fills gaps, explains himself, seeks feedback. There is nothing wrong with this. It is part of growth. But energy is not the same as gravity. Energy excites, gravity holds, and attraction deepens when people feel held, not stimulated. Presence creates gravity. When you are present, your nervous system is regulated. You are not scanning the room for approval or rejection. You are not waiting to be validated or threatened. This internal steadiness is felt by others at a subconscious level. Human beings are highly sensitive to emotional states. Even when they cannot articulate them, they sense when someone is centered and when someone is fragmented, and they respond accordingly. This is why people tend to calm down around men with presence. Conversation slow, eye contact lingers, There is less performative behavior and more authenticity. Not because you are doing something to make this happen, but because your internal state gives others permission to exhale. And this is profoundly attractive, especially in a world saturated with noise, urgency, and emotional volatility. Most men believe attraction requires effort, strategy, or display. But presence requires restraint. It requires knowing when not to speak, knowing when not to react, knowing that you do not need to earn space because you already occupy it. This is not arrogance. It is self-trust. Older men often miss this shift because they are still measuring themselves against outdated metrics. They compare their current self to a younger version of themselves rather than recognizing that attraction has simply changed form. You are no longer meant to compete on speed, novelty, or excess. You are meant to embody depth, clarity, and calm. And when you do, you become rare. Presence also changes how conflict unfolds. When a man with presence is challenged, he does not escalate. He does not defend impulsively. He listens fully, responds minimally, and remains emotionally intact. This communicates strength more convincingly than dominance ever could. People quickly learn that provoking you will not produce chaos, and this alone earns respect. Respect is the foundation of attraction, even when desire is involved. There is also a philosophical layer here that most men overlook. Presence signals self-sufficiency. When you are present, you are not psychologically leaning on others to stabilize your sense of self. You are not outsourcing your worth. This autonomy is deeply compelling because it suggests that connection with you is a choice, not a necessity. And when connection is chosen rather than needed, it carries more weight. Think about the men you instinctively respect. They are rarely the loudest or the most visible. They are the ones who seem comfortable in their own company. The ones who are not afraid of pauses. The ones who do not flinch under scrutiny. That comfort is not accidental. It is cultivated through experience, self-reflection, and a willingness to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. Presence also makes your words matter more. When you speak less, people listen more. When you do not over-explain, people assume depth. When you are not reactive, people assume control. None of this requires manipulation. It emerges naturally when you stop trying to be impressive and start being anchored. This is why trying to appear attractive often backfires. Performance creates tension. Presence dissolves it. The moment you let go of the need to be seen a certain way, you begin to be seen clearly. And clarity is far more magnetic than perfection. For older men, this is not a disadvantage. It is an advantage waiting to be claimed. Time has given you the raw material for presence, experience, perspective, restraint. But presence only develops when you stop resisting who you are and start inhabiting yourself fully. This does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging from a place of inner alignment rather than external validation. It means choosing depth over display, substance over noise, stillness over performance. And here is the quiet truth most men never hear. Attraction does not peak when you are most visible. It peaks when you are most grounded. When you no longer need to prove your worth, you embody it. When you no longer chase attention, you command it. When you stop asking how you are perceived, you become unforgettable. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this. Stop trying to be attractive. Start being present. Because presence is not something you show. It is something you become. And once you become it, everything else begins to rearrange around you. The question is not whether you still have value. The question is whether you are willing to stand still long enough to feel it, trust it, and let the world respond. Most people misunderstand what safety really means. They hear the word and think of protection, reassurance, or comfort in a soft, almost passive sense. But psychological safety is not weakness. It is not over-accommodation. It is not emotional availability without boundaries. Safety, in its truest form, is the ability to remain emotionally stable in the presence of uncertainty, disagreement, and tension. And for older men, this is where attraction quietly deepens in ways that younger men rarely recognize. When someone feels safe around you, their nervous system relaxes. They stop performing. They stop monitoring themselves. They become more authentic, more expressive, more emotionally honest. And this shift does not happen because of what you say. It happens because of who you are being while they are in your presence. Emotional maturity is what makes this possible. It is the capacity to experience emotion without being governed by it, to feel anger without exploding, to feel desire without chasing, to feel uncertainty without collapsing into insecurity. This is not something that can be learned quickly or faked convincingly. It is built through experience, through failure, through reflection, and through the decision to take responsibility for your inner world rather than projecting it outward. You can see emotional immaturity immediately. It shows up as reactivity, defensiveness, the need to win arguments rather than understand, the need to be right rather than grounded, the need to dominate rather than remain composed. And here is the uncomfortable truth: reactivity is deeply unattractive, not because it is emotional, but because it signals instability. It tells others that their emotional safety depends on your mood, and that is a burden no one wants to carry. Emotionally mature men do not outsource their regulation. They do not expect others to tiptoe around their triggers. They are aware of their internal states and manage them without spectacle. This creates a sense of reliability that is rare and profoundly appealing. When a woman or anyone feels that you will not punish them emotionally for being honest, something shifts. They test less. They defend less. They relax more. Not because you are permissive, but because you are predictable in the best possible way. Predictability, in this sense, does not mean boring. It means consistent. It means your values do not change with your mood. Your boundaries do not disappear under pressure. Your composure does not vanish when challenged. This consistency allows trust to grow, and trust is the gateway to desire, not its opposite. Without trust, attraction remains superficial, fragile, and short-lived. Older men often carry an advantage here, though many fail to recognize it. Life has already tested you. You have been disappointed. You have lost things you cared about. You have seen how quickly certainty can dissolve. And if you have processed these experiences rather than numbing them, they have likely softened your ego while strengthening your core. This combination is powerful. A man who is strong without being rigid, open without being needy, and confident without being defensive becomes a psychological anchor. People feel steadier simply being near him. This does not mean you absorb everyone else's emotions or become a therapist. Emotional maturity is not about carrying others. It is about being solid enough that others do not have to carry you. Boundaries are a critical part of this safety. Without boundaries, availability turns into exhaustion. With boundaries, availability becomes intentional. Emotionally mature men know when to engage and when to step back. They do not overextend themselves in the hope of being liked. And paradoxically, this restraint makes them more attractive because it communicates self-respect. And self-respect signals that connection with you is a privilege, not an entitlement. Safety also shows up in how you handle disagreement. An emotionally mature man does not interpret disagreement as a threat to his identity. He listens fully. He responds thoughtfully. He does not rush to correct or control. This ability to remain present during tension tells others that conflict will not lead to chaos, that honesty will not be punished, that emotions can exist without escalating into drama. For many people, especially those who have experienced emotional unpredictability in the past, this feels profoundly reassuring, and reassurance, when paired with strength, creates attraction that is deep rather than performative. It is important to understand that emotional maturity does not mean emotional distance. In fact, it allows for deeper intimacy, because when you are regulated, you can tolerate vulnerability without becoming overwhelmed. You can be close without losing yourself. You can care without clinging. This balance is rare, and rarity creates value. You do not need to announce your emotional intelligence. It is revealed in how you respond when things do not go your way, in how you hold eye contact during difficult conversations, in how you leave space for others to be themselves without losing your center. Most men are taught to suppress emotion or to act it out. Few are taught how to integrate it. Integration is what transforms emotion from a liability into a source of depth. As you mature emotionally, your presence changes. People feel safer sharing with you. They feel less judged, less rushed, less guarded, and attraction grows quietly in this space, not as excitement alone, but as trust, admiration, and desire intertwined. So if you are an older man listening to this, do not underestimate the power of your emotional stability. It is not passive, it is not boring, it is not invisible, it is felt. And the final reflection to leave you with is this: anyone can create excitement, few can create safety. And those who can become unforgettable, not because they demand attention, but because they offer something rare in a chaotic world, emotional steadiness. Cultivate that, protect it, and let it speak for you. There comes a moment in a man's life when something subtle but profound begins to shift. It is not loud. It does not arrive with applause or external validation. It happens internally, often after disappointment, fatigue, or the quiet realization that chasing approval has cost more than it ever gave back. This is the moment when a man begins to move from wanting to be chosen to choosing for himself. For most of their lives, men are conditioned to seek selection, to be approved, to be desired, to be recognized as enough. This conditioning runs deep. It shows up in careers, relationships, social status, and even self-worth. And while ambition and effort are not inherently wrong, the psychological posture of waiting to be picked creates a subtle but persistent imbalance. When you are waiting to be chosen, you are psychologically positioned below others. Your value feels conditional, your confidence fluctuates based on feedback, and your sense of direction becomes reactive rather than intentional. This is exhausting, even when it is successful. The shift happens when a man realizes that no amount of external selection will ever resolve an internal lack of authority over his own life. Attraction, respect, and fulfillment cannot be sustained when they are dependent on being validated by others. They only stabilize when they are self-authored. Choosing does not mean rejecting everyone or becoming emotionally closed. It means developing standards that are rooted in self-respect rather than fear. It means asking not only whether you are wanted, but whether you want what is being offered. This reversal changes everything. Psychologically, humans are drawn to those who operate from internal authority. When someone chooses rather than waits, their energy shifts from seeking to assessing, from proving to observing, from needing to deciding, and this shift is felt immediately, even if it is never articulated. Older men often arrive at this place after experiencing the cost of over-giving. They have invested time, energy, and emotion into people and situations that did not reciprocate. They have chased outcomes that looked promising but felt hollow, and eventually, a realization sets in. Access to you is not unlimited. This is not bitterness. It is discernment. When a man begins to choose intentionally, he becomes more selective with his time, his attention, and his emotional investment. He no longer confuses intensity with intimacy or availability with value. He understands that what he tolerates teaches others how to treat him. This is where attraction transforms. Because when you choose, you create scarcity without manipulation. Not artificial scarcity designed to provoke desire, but natural scarcity born from self-respect and clarity. People sense when you are no longer trying to secure them. Conversations feel different. Interactions slow down. There is more curiosity and less assumption. And often, there is a subtle increase in respect that precedes attraction. This is because choice implies options, and options imply value. Philosophically, choosing is an act of authorship. It is the declaration that your life is not a reaction to external demands, but an expression of internal values. This level of alignment is deeply compelling because it suggests coherence, and coherence is magnetic. Men who choose are not easily swayed. They do not abandon their principles for short-term approval. They do not contort themselves to fit spaces that do not honor them. They are willing to walk away, not to threaten, but because they understand that self-betrayal costs more than loneliness. This willingness to walk away is often misunderstood as detachment or arrogance. In reality, it is emotional maturity. It is the understanding that connection should enhance your life, not destabilize it. Choosing also changes how you handle rejection. When you are waiting to be chosen, rejection feels personal and destabilizing. When you are choosing, rejection becomes information rather than indictment. It tells you about compatibility, not worth. This reframing frees an enormous amount of psychological energy that was previously spent on rumination, self-doubt, and comparison can now be invested in growth, purpose, and depth. Older men who embrace this shift often notice something surprising. They become more attractive without trying to be. Not because they are indifferent, but because they are anchored. Not because they are unavailable, but because they are intentional. Intentionality communicates direction, and direction is attractive because it suggests leadership, even in personal life. People trust those who know where they stand and where they are going. Choosing also refines desire. You are no longer drawn to chaos disguised as chemistry. You are no longer seduced by attention that lacks substance. You begin to value alignment, emotional intelligence, and shared values over novelty. This does not diminish passion, it deepens it, because passion rooted in choice rather than need is more stable, more conscious, and more sustainable. It is important to understand that choosing is not a one-time decision. It is a practice. It requires ongoing self-awareness, honest reflection, and the courage to say no when something does not align, even if it is tempting. But each time you choose with integrity, your sense of self solidifies, your boundaries strengthen, your confidence becomes quieter but more durable. And others respond to this, not always consciously but consistently. So if you find yourself at this stage of life, where the desire to be chosen is slowly being replaced by the desire to choose well, do not resist it. It is not a loss of opportunity. It is the refinement of it. You are not becoming less open. You are becoming more precise. And the final thought to leave you with is this. Attraction does not come from needing to be selected. It comes from living as if your life is already valuable. When you choose yourself first, you teach the world how to meet you there.